Okay, I think I'm live. Good morning, everybody out there. I see in the chat room and those who I don't see. It's only just getting light enough. I was going to turn the lights on, but the sun apparently is probably already up. But it's a very cloudy day, so anyway, long time no see. I don't think I've done a live stream since Christmas. So we've had a quiet time over Christmas, New Year, which we always do, and been away in Southeast Asia on retreat, which was also very lovely, very rich, and taking a little time to adjust back after the heat of Southeast Asia. And even though it's only a 3 or 4 hour time difference, it just still feel that jet lag. It's a very strange feeling. And so then light is different at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's quite dark here. Soon we'll be going into daylight savings. Out of daylight savings, which means it's going to be lighter in the morning. So all these reflections on time and change, how the seasons keep changing, how the places that we're in perhaps keep changing. And we notice these changes, but then within that, noticing the changeless. So there's a lovely Dharma reflection, I think, from Ajahn Sumedho saying, I can't remember it now, but it's something like this, I'll paraphrase it, that, we keep moving from place to place or going different places when we travel, but really, we don't really go anywhere. The awareness or the consciousness, if you reflect on that, wherever you go, it remains the same. It's just that the appearances keep changing around us. So in that sense, we don't have to be reacting or liking or disliking anything if we find that unchanging stability. So that perhaps brings us into the meditation this morning. And I think the notification should have gone out, so it gives people enough time to join. If you've never, I think I saw someone said they'd never been here before. Maybe there's a few first timers after all this time. And it's a very casual live stream. We just start with about a 20 or 30 minute meditation together with some guidance, and then just open it up for some Q&A on Dharma. So without further ado, and without being able to ask you any questions, which is always the limitations of such sessions, it's a bit of a one-way street, isn't it? It's just me talking. So the questions are helpful for input, even though I can't see your faces or get your responses. We get a sense. It kind of works. It's better than nothing, isn't it? When you don't have a connection, a Sangha connection in real time, then this can hopefully be of service to people, and it's why we offer it. So may the Dharma be helpful in whatever form it takes, yeah? So I welcome you all just to come into a comfortable seated position, coming more into a stillness and a quiet. We can leave the chat behind. I'll leave it open, but people may come in halfway. So just during the meditation, just take your eyes off the chat, off the screen if you can, so that you're not distracted. And if people come in late, They'll wonder why I'm sitting here saying nothing or very little if they haven't been before. Okay, so I'm going to just remove my eyes from the screen because it's actually quite bright. And as the sun comes up, hopefully my background will get a little brighter at least. You see, be able to see the trees. There they are. No blue sky this morning though. And even the birds are a bit slow getting up this morning. Just the magpies. Okay. So just come into a place of stillness, physical stillness now, if you can. Lowering the eyes or closing the eyes, or keeping the eyes open, but preferably not at the screen. I don't think it's particularly good for the eyes to be looking at the screen. So if you have a wall in front of you where you can look upwards, you can do that. And when we begin meditation, don't have this attitude of, right, now I'm going to meditate, as if it's something, that you're going to do or get, or that it's radically different from, your normal state of being. But just recognize a gentle turning inwards and turning away from sense objects, not closing it off, because you can still hear. You can hear my voice, you can hear the sounds around you. So you're not shutting them out, but you're developing a different relationship to them. So you're simply starting to witness them in a non-conceptual way. So without labeling. Just a minute, I'll go scan. And similarly with sights. Okay, oh boy. Beg your pardon. We seem to have a virus. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Am I here? Am I here now? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, thing is, I think I've got a serious virus on my little HP, which I often use. So I've had to switch to another laptop. And I think I'm going to have to ditch that HP. It just, it's very weird. I don't know if you've ever had viruses before, and I think it is a virus. I've got a hacker. And it just started to just take control, and then all these windows popped up, and then it closed down, and it was very weird. It has happened before when I've been on different applications, and I've just restarted it, but I think it's really serious now. So I don't know what you do when you've got a virus. I have got virus protection, for what it's worth, with Trend Micro, but some little gremlin got in. But fortunately, I had another laptop. Wow. Okay. So how was your meditation while that was all happening? A lot of people would have just said, oh, well, that's it. See you later. But there you go. So shall we go back into the meditation? Okay. Very funny. And sorry for the disruption, but this is technology, one of the limitations. So as long as you can hear me and see me, we can keep going. Okay. So just noticing in your body how such an event impacts you. We're just recollecting whether it brought up annoyance or surprise or humor, panic, confusion, boredom, feeling over it with technology. So that's good. Just notice all of those reactions and responses to what happens in the world, and see if you can just come back again to just noticing that which is witnessing all of this. So these events happen and change, but there's still that thing that's just watching it like a movie. In that case, it was a bit of a comedy drama. We didn't know where it was going. We didn't know if it was going to resolve itself or just be a complete dud. And in some ways, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. So we take everything as an opportunity for learning about Dharma, about truth, particularly as it relates to our minds. Shouldn't be this way. I don't like it. What's going on? This is wrong. This is right. All this is Dharma. Learning about mind, the conditioned mind, the habitual tendencies. And without judging ourselves, saying, oh my God, look at me, I'm always reacting this way. Just notice it. With an attitude of metta, of loving kindness and acceptance. And that's how we come out of it, how we wake up. So if you're just joining now or refinding the stream, just encourage you to sit in stillness, and we'll leave the chat alone for now. And it's an opportunity just to notice our own minds. And that includes also paying attention to the body as a way of just stabilizing ourselves fully in the present moment, embodying ourselves. It helps us to start to feel a greater sense of calm and clarity. Can you find your breath? Can you breathe with awareness? One of the great masters said that awareness is the key to happiness. The more conscious we are, the more we can experience true joy. Not the joy of events, of things coming and going, or exciting sensory import, but the true joy of just simply being conscious, aware, and present. So can you just notice that? Experience it, or just be it. By simply coming in to being. There's nothing much more to it. It's the most natural state of our own natural being. But through conditioning, through fears, and especially through thinking, we've divorced ourselves from it. So meditation is nothing more than coming back to a natural state. In fact, meditation is more natural, more real, and more who we are in our essence. Than the modality we find ourselves in our daily lives. Of thinking, doing, of reacting, of becoming someone. So this is quite ironic when we think about people who think they've got to meditate or they can't meditate. As if meditation is something unnatural or that you have to practice, when it's really just the most natural state. But like anything in life, it's all about habits. So when we develop the habit from a fairly young age, it starts, of moving away from our natural state, then that habit develops very deep patterns, as we know. Like a deep ravine in a river, and so the water flows that way, outwards, agitated. And so we learn to redirect the stream back to the natural, calm pool of awareness that's always there. And as I said at the beginning of this meditation before we dropped out, we don't block out sense impressions. We notice the sounds. We have a peripheral awareness of the sights. We're in touch with the physical sensations, the thoughts flowing past in the mind's eye. But we're building that muscle of awareness, of witnessing. So that none of these things impact us anymore in the same way. They're just passing sense impressions. And you don't have to pick any of them up. You don't have to push or pull. You keep recognizing that which knows. And that becomes your anchor. And when you do get lost and find yourself grasping at something or fighting with some sense impression, a thought, an emotion, a sound, a physical pain, or a pleasure, just wake up in that very moment. See the suffering that this dance of liking and disliking is creating. And in that very seeing, in that very awareness, it self-liberates. It drops away. Just keep looking. Keep seeing with the inner eye of awareness. Keep asking yourself, where am I now? Am I lost in thought, daydreaming, regret, desire? That very questioning and inquiry snaps you out of it. You don't need to force yourself to be present. You just have to notice when you're not. And when you notice that you're not, then you're present. And eventually you can find yourself very comfortably sitting. Just like sitting on a bank of a river, on a warm, calm, still day. And you're quite content just to watch things float by. You're not swept away by anything. You're not caught up in anything. The birds sing. The water flows. And you don't have an issue with anything. Because you found your own home. And it's stable and calm and awake. There's no desire to change anything, to fix anything, to get anything, or to become anything. What does that feel like? Deep in the heart, what does that feel like? Not what does it think like? Don't think about it. Just fully come into it in a very embodied way. in a more intuitive way that's non-conceptual, non-verbal, non-mental. One of the things you might notice as you rest more in this place of quiet awareness, that even if sounds and movements are happening outside or inside, you start to notice that there's this all-pervasive sense of silence. It's like a all-encompassing vibration. You might experience it as some sort of vibratory sound or hum. It's not really a sound. You just start to notice it. It's very subtle. If you can, don't force it. It's like the background vibration to everything. And within that, all the sounds appear and disappear. All the sights. All the thoughts and memories. The sensations come and go. But your awareness resonates with this vibratory presence, if you like. So tune into that. Start to notice that more. And then all these other things and reactions just come and go and dissolve. And so when you're ready, you start to just move the body. It's been sitting for a while. But even though you're moving and we're coming more into communication, that vibratory presence is always there, that awareness. So we learn to recognize it in all the different ways of being. Someone's written, wherever you are, there you go. I always thought wherever you go, there you are, but anyway. I guess you can say it in whatever way, but anyway, there we are. Here we are. We've been on 2 different laptops this morning, but we're still here. So if there are any questions, please, you can welcome to write them into the chat. Someone was noticing the lovely birds. Yeah, they're quite, it's interesting with the weather, isn't it? Because it's an overcast day. It has been for a couple of days. So the birds are kind of chill. And when the sun gets up, they it's like us. They're all very excited, but they're just kind of chirp. Even the magpies a bit. On a sunny day, you're like. That sounds like a turkey, I know. It's my best magpie impersonation. Okay. So there's a question from, where is it? It's already moving. From Don't Know. Do you prefer living in the city or the country? Well, yes, I do have a preference. I prefer the country. This is why I live in the country. But if I had to live in the city, then I'd have to deal with it and make the most of it, because I kind of grew up in a city. It's more of a suburb. But, I guess the city of Melbourne and its suburbs. Now Melbourne's very, very busy, very, very busy compared to when I grew up in the 70s. So, yes, as a monastic, most monastics prefer, I'd say most, prefer to live in the country because it's easier to get in touch with nature. As you can see outside my window, spotted gums, birds, echidnas, wallabies, snakes, kangaroos further up the road. No koalas here anymore. I mean, where I used to live, we had koalas. And so much life, which in terms of a meditation practice, a meditative life, it's great teaching. It just reminds you of the natural cycles of life. So, often smell dead animals, see a dead animal. It just reminds you, and the trees shed their barks every year. the leaves are falling. It's a constant reminder of the cycle of life and death. And it's very natural and it's very peaceful. And we've got a lot of birds that visit us too, become quite friendly with us, and they teach you so much, don't they? And when you're in the city surrounded by concrete and giant buildings, I mean, there's lots of Dharma lessons there, but it's not nature. So it has different lessons, and you don't get as much fresh air, etc. So it's for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer, but it's not to say that you can't practice living in the city, because you certainly can. And if we have preferences, if we have preferences, it's okay to make that decision. But if they change and we suffer, then we have to learn to recognize that preferencing can be a problem. Sorry, I'm just still adjusting to the fact that I've got a different laptop, so that mouse doesn't work. Of course it doesn't. Okay. So there's a question, do you watch TV? No, we don't even have a TV, so that makes it simple. Okay. Hello, Sophie. Sophie from, I'm not sure where you're living anymore, whether you're still in Sweden or back somewhere else. Popping here after a longer time, inspiring to see you and listen to you again. Yeah, well, I hope you're well. And I know Sophie from her visit to Australia when we were at Santee Monastery. And she's a very talented musician. If you click on her username, it might take you to her channel. You can see her avant-garde, creative, musical compositions. Hope you're well. Love to see you sometime. Okay, so someone's asked, what are my thoughts on Goenka's 10-day Vipassana techniques? They seem very strict. Yes, they are very strict. And I started off my meditation life when I was 21 doing a Goenka retreat, and it changed my life. So they're very powerful. And I obviously have reservations about them for everybody, because they throw you in the deep end, and they're very just sitting for 12 hours a day. I think you sort of get up at 4, sit. So it's not very integrative. And so for beginners, it can certainly give rise to some very powerful openings, but it can also send people off, meaning they can have psychotic episodes even if they don't have mental health problems. So I'm very cautious. I wouldn't overly recommend them, but I wouldn't dissuade. I mean, I did it myself and had some very powerful openings, but just to be aware of that. Unfortunately, they're not that open to feedback, so that's always a problem when the organisation isn't open for feedback. So I was involved for many years with them and lived at the centres and was like a centre manager, female manager. So lots of stories, but it did certainly change my life. But then I started studying Buddhism at university and did a PhD in looking at the differences, anyway, long story, but looking at Buddha Dharma and psychotherapy. So then I understood how the whole Goenka thing has taken the teachings of the Buddha and tried to make it secular. It doesn't want to declare itself Buddhist, but it's using all the Buddhist jargon and practices and created its own kind of unique, quirky practice. So for me, having a more deep, profound understanding of what the Buddha taught, and he didn't teach just watch sensations up and down. That's I guess a Goenka or a Uba King invention, but it's not what the Buddha taught. And what the Buddha taught was much more profound, and also he taught to the individual. That's the thing about the Goenka thing. It's not, it tries to be a one size fits all and it doesn't work. Whereas the Buddha knew, had the advantage of knowing where that person was at, what was going to work. And he certainly didn't throw everyone in the deep end like those retreats can do. Anyway, if you're interested to do one, I would also, because I haven't been involved with them for decades, is to talk to other people who've done them recently and see what it's like, see what's going on. Okay, so I'm skimming through the comments, the gratitude comments, but I'm appreciative of them and I'm glad that they were helpful. So Willow and said, can one be in the nature of mind and still look for more, missing it entirely? Well, no, I think if one is genuinely resting in the nature of the mind or recognizing the nature of the mind, then one wouldn't go looking for more. However, I think perhaps what you're getting at, and this is common, is to point out the nature of the mind or to recognize one's own awareness. What often happens is people can recognize it, but make it a very intellectual, conceptual recognition, and then go, well, it's no big deal. So what? We're all aware. And then the tendencies to wanting to go elsewhere, to look for excitement and desire, or to just want to get away from things they don't like, starts to become the more habitual mode. So I think it was Tulku Urgen who said, yeah, it's easy to recognize the nature of the mind, but then people conceptualize it and then go, well, it's no big deal. So if we fully, genuinely, authentically realize the nature of the mind, then everything else drops away. And there would be no desire to look for anything else. So, because it's a bit like the analogy of when you come home and you feel really at home and comfortable, well, you don't want to go out, do you? Certainly when you're my age. Home is the most comfortable place because it just feels natural. And everything else is just, doesn't mean that people don't come into your home, but you're not going out looking for excitement anymore. But that recognition of the nature of mind has to be authentic and real, not just an idea of it, which is what a lot of people develop. Because they hear about it, they hear all these teachings and these wonderful words, and they go, yeah, I get it. And they might sort of have a slight inkling, and then they make something of it conceptually. And then they wonder why isn't it a big deal? Why don't I feel enlightened? Because you're just in your head thinking about it or conceptualizing it. Question. I find myself needy for the attention of people. I get anxious when people don't contact me for numerous days. How do I overcome this sense of neediness? Well, the first step, I suppose, is also just the fact that you notice it is really a big bonus, believe it or not, that you even notice that. A lot of people don't even notice their need for attention, the need to be the center of attention. Or if it starts to impact their awareness, they don't want to know about it. So the fact that you're aware of this need for attention and the anxiety, it's great. The other thing is that's not that unusual. It's like, I think at one level we're all in the same boat, because when we develop a sense of self, which we all do, which is built on falsity and all sorts of complex conditioned responses, it's always needing to feed itself, to tell itself that it's great. because a false sense of self, by its very nature, is always looking to feed itself, its ego sense of self. So the best thing to do is start to really investigate this sense of self that you have. Some of the good teachings on my channel to do that are the Advaita ones, Ramana Maharshi, Annamalai Swami, Nisargadatta, because those particular teachings are always looking at this sense of getting people to inquire into this notion of who you think you are and how you've developed this sense of a self as being the body, as being the mind, and how that keeps feeding itself by what we do, and how we need to keep feeding it through people's affirmations. And then when they insult us, when they're rude to us, how fragile that ego is. So this is the path you're on. It's like there's no one quick response. How do I overcome it? It's not going to be overcome. A sense of neediness is not going to be overcome overnight. It's a lifelong process of overcoming the delusion of believing that you are a particular self, which is a personality with all its strengths and weaknesses. And when we believe in a faulty sense of a self, of a personality, it's always going to be subject to what the Buddha called the worldly winds. And one of the worldly winds is these winds of praise and blame, of fame and disrepute, of liking and disliking, of ups and downs and so on, goods and bads. So when you apply that to this sense of self is always being battered by these winds of affirmation and denial, whether it's ourselves affirming us, oh, we're great, well, I'm not great, or others saying, oh, you're great, or ignoring us, which can be taken as a sense of blame. So it's about getting to know the worldly winds and the fact that when we grasp a false sense of self, which has been created through conditions, we're always going to be needy, because it thrives on affirmation or praise, and it shrinks of any sense of blame, or failure. So keep investigating how believing in a self like this is it's just samsaric. You're always going to be up and down, needy, not needing, anxious one day, okay the next. And unless you investigate how this is just a construction of our worldly winds and our worldly experience, and find out what your real self is, which we don't want to call it a self, your essence of being is, what are you really? And in that meditation, it's trying to point people to just that sense of natural aliveness. It's not a self. It's not dependent on praise and blame, but it just knows everything. And that awareness, that knowing nature, that awakefulness, and wakefulness is what is meant by Buddha. Buddha means one who is awake. That isn't battered by the worldly winds. It doesn't come and go. It's not dependent on people's praise. It's not affected by people's blame or judgment. Now, you go to the core of that in your meditation practice, and you realize that this is home. This is what I am at the core. And it's not a personality. It's not even a self. It just is. That's what you need to discover. And you can do that by where you're at, noticing the suffering that arises in you when you're craving the attention of people, noticing the suffering that arises by being anxious when people ignore you or don't contact you. This is all good stuff. It's what's called the Four Noble Truths. It's a foundational practice, what the Buddha was pointing us all to start to notice that suffering. What's it caused by? What is the cause of suffering? It's believing and grasping a self. How do you overcome it? You start investigating. But if you believe that you're going to overcome it in 1 or 2 days, weeks, months, or even years, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you just keep noticing. There's suffering, and they're the cause of suffering. When we see the cause of suffering, of grasping at a self, then we come to the end of suffering. Suffering ceases. Okay. So I'll keep going because there seems to be a few questions. The question about, do Buddhists believe in a personal God and how do they relate to Christian mystics, is a bit too general. I mean, they don't believe in a personal God, but the Buddha taught that there are many gods, God realms. But in terms of a creator God, this word God is so problematic, and everybody has a different concept of it, idea of it. So to answer it, you could be answering it all at different levels. But the Buddha said, one of his final teaching was, or when he woke up, I should say, he said, builder of the house, you've been seen. I know who the builder of the house is. So you could say he saw what was being created within himself, which also gave rise to the world, was within him, the God within, the creator within. He saw that. He saw how it was created and how it came to an end. And he said, no more building of the house, which was this bodily form, these attachments to this, what I was just saying, this personal sense of a self, this false sense of a self. That's quite different from the Christian's concept, I think, because I was brought up Catholic, of God, which is much more profound. God is often referred to, I always liked it when God was something you couldn't know. It certainly wasn't a man in the sky with a white beard, which we all learned to somehow develop as young children. But some of the verses and hymns we used to sing were things like, God is love, God is truth, God is unknown, God is silence. So when your concept of God becomes not anthropomorphic or personal, it's much more in line with all the mystics, because they realize God. They don't go, oh God, hi, how are you? I finally seen you. They realize that God is within as a attributeless attribute, as the unconditioned. So that's where all these mystical teachings intersect. Goes beyond all these very limited, quite childlike views of God as a judgmental, patriarchal figure, something outside ourselves, to recognizing that power on those qualities that we could say were godlike are all within us, to be uncovered and discovered. All right, moving on. What is your preferred meditation object? It's a big I don't know. Just awareness, which is not even an object. So sometimes, I will use the breath as a way, if needed, of just coming into the body. Because I'm quite kinesthetic, I find tuning into the body straight away a natural thing to do, and the breath is part of the body. And therefore you feel grounded because, if you're in your head a lot, thinking, being a very heady case, it's why the body is good for grounding you. And equally, because I'm also quite auditory, listening to Dharma, if you're going to say that's an object, that is an object, is a way of, again, pointing you back to just being here and now. But so they're skillful means. When we talk about meditation objects, they're just skillful means for pointing you back to that which is objectless, which is just being. So you don't make awareness or being an object. It's just the subjective experience that goes beyond all concepts of subject-object. So you use whatever meditation object works for you to help you come back to here and now, to reality. But it's like that analogy of the raft that the Buddha talked about. You use the raft to cross the river, but once you get across the river, you get out of the raft and you don't keep carrying it around on the bank, do you? So we do that, and we don't think that one meditation object is better. I've got the supreme object. I'm focusing on a deity or something like that. I've got the higher practice. Because everybody's different, and some things will work for some people and not for others. And that's why I said before, the Buddha knew what suited this particular person and taught them accordingly. So Alana has a question below that, which says, the vibratory presence. How may we practice the coming into this awareness and going out? Could it be like the alternating rhythm of the breath? Yeah, it could. And with any, talking about coming into the awareness and going out, this awareness is something that happens it flows naturally. And what we've got to do with any of these practices, and even like the object that I talked about prior, is to let go of this sense of there's a me here meditating and I'm doing the meditation. You need to just notice that. Because that sense of I am in everything is what's preventing us from really going deeper. And if we don't see that, we're just stuck in this, in really the wrong view of meditation practice. So if we're thinking, right, now I've got to go into noticing this vibratory presence. Now I've lost it, I've got to go back into it. You can see how it's just me. There's a sense of there's a meditator here. What I encourage you to do in meditation is look for the meditator. Is there a meditator who's meditating? Because it's that very clinging to a notion of I'm one who's meditating and having experiences. That's the great delusion, and is keeping us in a sense of subject-object or duality. So it's a really primary investigation. Look for the meditator when you're meditating. Who's meditating? There's no one meditating. There's just things happening. And as soon as you cling to I am the central figure in this process, you see how that in itself is a creation. This is that sense of self, of I am this. I was a deluded person, but now I am a great meditator. It's the same thing coming into meditation. I am having these wonderful, blissful experiences of meditation. I am keeping my mind calm. I am whatever you're doing in minute. It's the I am. It's just the same smelly ego coming into the meditation or spiritual practice. Great obstacle. People don't see this in spirituality. They just develop a new ego. It's called the spiritual ego. And they become very spiritual, very pure, have wonderful experiences, and like to tell everybody about how enlightened they are. So it's the same thing with new clothes, white ones often, which have a big dirty spot on them. Okay, it's called the I am. Where are we going? I think I've lost you. Okay, I'm going to just warn you now. There's no way, Jose, I'm going to get through all these questions. So I'm just going to go very slowly. Yeah. Someone's called you. If the world is an illusion, a dream, should I be involved in all of this? And if yes, on what level? I'm confused. Okay. So when the masters talk about the world being like a dream, like an illusion, there's a big difference, I think, between saying the world is a dream. Because when we say the world is a dream, what tends to happen for a lot of people is that we go, well, therefore I'm going to cut it off. But when we say it's like a dream, then we can develop a different attitude to realizing, oh, if it's like a dream, then I can travel through this landscape, mindscape, soundscape, sightscape very lightly by not taking it all too seriously or as real. But it's a fine line between doing that and going, oh, well, if it's a dream, then that person isn't really suffering. They just should wake up. And we can become very disassociated, very cut off, very cold. So this is the great challenge in practice. But when we see it like a dream, it doesn't mean we don't act, we don't respond out of compassion, we don't choose skillful behavior that's ethical and helpful. But then when it doesn't, like, the computer crashed before. It was like a bad dream. It's all gone. So what do? Oh, it's okay. We'll just do what we can do. And that was interesting. Think about your own dreams. Sometimes if you're lucky and you practice too, you'll notice you start to know when you're dreaming. That's a very good sign. So when you know you're dreaming in a dream, you don't have the same reaction. You're about to fall off a cliff, but you're dreaming and there's no harm coming to you. That's not to say go and jump off a cliff in real life, because there are cliffs there and you will die. Unless you've got amazing city powers, you will die. But probably shouldn't have used the cliff example. But anyway, so someone's abusing you in a dream and you're dreaming. You're not going to have the same reaction, because it's just, it's just stuff working itself out. So the same can happen in life. If you start to see it as a dream, and it's appearances, and you can actually start to see these appearances actually have no real essence or substance to them. And science backs us up, doesn't it? There's no substance to the material world. It's all molecules, atoms, not even that, quantum particles. So we know that scientifically, the dreamlike, substanceless nature to the world that we're perceiving, but we take it as we perceive it as very solid. But science tells us there's no solidity. It's 99.99% space. But if we know that, why do we always think this is real? Okay? So we start to just keep reminding ourselves that it's actually no abiding essence or substance to anything. Just let it go. And as you let it go, then life does become quite dreamlike, light, flowing, more evanescent, you know. The body becomes light, thoughts become just like bubbles in space, clouds floating in the sky. And you see that there's absolutely nothing within any of these appearances that you can grasp as a solid, unchanging, fixed anything, a self, whatever you want to call it, essence. And that is the truth of impermanence. Okay. But the attitude of therefore it's a dream, I shouldn't care, I shouldn't be involved in it, is simply coming from aversion and wrong view. You know, it comes out of not liking it and wanting to get away from it. So you have to investigate that, because that's not going to take you anywhere other than get you caught in it. So it's not about pushing or pulling, cutting away or grasping. It's just finding that sense of lightness and wakefulness, and, you know, learning skillful means at the same time. Okay, so Amanda's tinnitus has actually been a blessing. Yes, for some people it becomes noticing the silence can be like, turn it off. Hello from South Africa. Most of your videos are downloaded on my phone for bedtime. Thank you so much. It's okay. Jennifer's been going through difficulties that brings me in touch with the truth of dukkha. Good. Suffering is liberating if we understand it and use it in the right way. Okay, so there's a sort of question statement from Patrick below that. It says, I've been practicing mostly self-inquiry, focusing on this presence, awakeness that is always here. I know that awakening only happens in this moment, but I find myself waiting for Kensho. Kensho is like an experience of awakening, enlightenment in the moment. So good. That's all you've got to do. Keep noticing how there's still that imposter within you that thinks that there's something that's going to happen for them, that's going to give them some sort of certificate of Kensho. That's what has to be seen into, Patrick. Who's that? Who's that that's always sitting there waiting? What is that? It's just desire. And a sense that there's, again, a sense that there's a meditator sitting there doing this, waiting for the result, waiting for the reward. You know, that's suffering. That we think we're someone here, that enlightenment's happening in the future. When I get it, you just have to keep looking at that. But not looking at it thinking, well, if I look at it, then I'll get Kensho. It just keeps on, just keep unraveling it, okay? And then if you see it, you know, feel joy in that you've seen it. That's great. Just in what you said now, you know, you're seeing that there's someone wanting more than what's just here and now. So it's this new creation of a me. I'm here. You know, this is my creative visual. It's me, I'm here in meditation. Oh, am I going to get it? If I stay here, being very present, will I get the reward? So this thing that pops up, this I am notion of me and the desire, is the very thing that the Buddha was asking us to look at. The builder of the house, the one that's always wanting to become something or something else, or get something or something else. And when it becomes the one who wants to become enlightened or get enlightenment, that is the great delusion and a big problem in current spiritual circles. So can we just be no one, going nowhere, getting nothing, without a sense of self? It's an oxymoron, of course, because how can someone become nothing? Because then they become nothing. So it's not about saying, well, now I have to be a nobody, because you're somebody wanting to become a nobody. It's just so hard to talk about, isn't it? Because words always circle themselves and come back to their own limitations. But hopefully you get what I mean. Just to be empty without anyone being empty, because really emptiness is what we are already. So we don't have to become it. So there's nothing to become and there's no one to be, because there's no one there to be anything anyway. And in realizing that, that is the great liberation, because everything gives up. It's not that somebody gives up and then comes nobody, or somebody becomes empty. It's just the recognition. Oh, and all this stuff about becoming enlightened and going somewhere was just dukkha, was just suffering. And I was creating it all out of my imagination and desire. And all the crap that I've read, that people have said that I've misinterpreted, or wrong teachings, of which there are many. And so you just get so confused in spiritual practice, but you wake up one day and you realize, oh my God. Oh, let's leave God out of it. It was all just a dream of me creating this false sense of everything, right? Moving on. Living in the USA and feeling a bit lost. I'm sure you are, Ev. How can I help those who are being mistreated by our government? I do not want to turn a blind eye, and I am at a loss how to handle this new world. Yeah, I feel for you, and we're all in this together, put it that way. So the decisions that the government make in the US affect us all, and they're deliberately targeting other countries as well. So no one's immune. However, I imagine living in the throes of it would feel very surreal. But I'm going to say something that may not be all that popular, and also may be greatly misinterpreted. And so be it. Even if I said the most skillful things, it could be still misinterpreted. I would see that this is a great opportunity for awakening. I don't mean that in a really, flaky sense, but it is. Because I think what we're all going through, and particularly what some people in the States, others are probably on cloud 9, who knows, is to start to look at how the outside events become such a big thing in our own mind, and how we react to it, and how it is creating so much suffering. Now, that's not to minimize the pain and suffering that some people are truly going through, in the sense of losing their benefits or losing their rights. But even still, you know, all of these, if we're practitioners, and I wouldn't want to say this for people who aren't practitioners, and they need help. They need financial help, political help. But for ourselves, if you are trying to practice to wake up with all conditions, then these can really help us to see, and I can't talk about it all because it's so complicated, but you have to take on board what's happening for you and look at the reactions and the way you're interpreting everything. And it doesn't mean you don't help people either. You do what you can. If you're into some sort of skillful activism, you do that. But it always has to be with wisdom, you know. These governments come and go, and they always have through history. They're creating their own karma, these individuals, and things will change. In the meantime, as individuals, we recognize we're creating our own karma, and we can create the karma that's going to bring happiness to others and to ourselves. So that's all we can do at one level. You know, fundamentally, we can just look after our own minds and our own actions and try to be as skillful, as ethical, as awake as possible. And whatever we do in the world, we can bring that too, and that changes the world. And you know, this phenomena is happening for whatever reason. It's complex, isn't it? You know, America has its own collective karma, and it's reaping the results of those karma. Australia has its own collective karma, and we reap the results of our karma as a nation. As a world, there's a collective karma. But it doesn't really help to try and figure it out or think about it. We might get little aha moments now and then, which might shine a light and help us to just kind of let go and stop taking it all so personally. And then just come back to the world that you inhabit, which includes your mind and body, your immediate relationships, your community relationships, and do what you can to make the world you live in and inhabit a better place. And that doesn't mean turning a blind eye. You know, you go work in a soup kitchen, you go volunteer somewhere. You know, that's really the selfish, greedy, fearful that's out there at the moment. But if you get caught up and swept up in the polarization and the blame, you're just part of that. You know, so you've got to notice when that's happening. And the fear, just notice, oh gosh, I feel so much fear about the future. And maybe turn off from ingesting too much news, which is so skewed, so much propaganda, so negative. And you know, listen to the truth. Listen to the masters, whether it's on my channel or reading it somewhere or somewhere else. Because these masters from centuries ago, they had all this stuff happen. In Tibet, there was all sorts of divisions and politics. So I'm getting a warning from YouTube saying my connection's unstable. Can you still hear me? Maybe just I'll test. Saying unable to connect. It's been a day of problems, technological problems. So can you hear me? I don't know. Perhaps not. Can someone write yes or no in the chat? Perhaps not. Bada 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 bada. What will I do? Oh well. Okay. Okay, sorry folks. We continue to have technological problems. Part of the reason I use that other laptop was because it had a stable connection, and now it's got a virus. So now I'm on this laptop, which doesn't, for some reason, have a stable connection. It doesn't have a virus. So I'm going to have to come up with plan C for next time. So, which maybe is a sign that we're going to finish this session in a minute anyway. But what was I going to ask about that? Can't remember. Anyway, I'll come up with plan C the next time I do it. Oh, that's right. I was just to tell you that we don't have a Wi-Fi connection per se here. We have to tether through our phone because we live in a place with many limitations because we're a bit rural. And so the mobile tethering is always a bit of a challenge. It's been better lately, but now that I switched laptops, I had new problems. So sorry about that. I got lots of yeses and then I was offline, so weird. All right, so all I've got is yeses. So all the, you know what's happened? This is hilarious. All the questions have disappeared. So I can't answer any more questions anyway. And all I've got are, yes, you're back. That's so funny. Yeah. All right, well, it's 8:30 anyway. I've got to go off to a group meditation somewhere else. So it's a good time to have a break and send you all best wishes. And I hope those questions reappear, but if they don't, they don't. So I'm going to end the stream in a minute, and Aya Jatindra will be back in about 3 weeks' time. We'll put the notice up, probably with a more stable connection than me. And next time I see you, I get a better connection and laptop. Take care, everybody. All blessings. Whatever instability there is in the world, of which there's a lot, seemingly, it doesn't matter, you know. And we drop out sometimes, we come back. Drop out, come back. Just keep smiling, keep shining, as they say, and see you soon. Take care.